Welcome to Unscripted Coding. Today we're going to be doing a bit of vibe coding to create this bar exam quiz app. Uh, Basically, we're going to have a bunch of multiple choice questions. We're going to see uh, the facts, the question, and also the multiple choice. You can save some notes and then you could keep going with the next question and the next question and so on. You're also going to have a dashboard to see your attempts, your correct answers and incorrect answers, tallying those up. But long story short, um, it's going to be a quiz app. And you might be wondering, there's 1,000 flashcard applications. Why this one? Why do I care? And the short answer is this is something I need to do for myself because I will be studying for the bar exam, yet another bar exam. And welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we're going to be doing quite a chill application development, vibe coding with AI, and what we're going to build is this bar exam quiz app. It's something that I need personally, but the long story short is it is a collection of multiple choice questions, and we're going to see that you have the fact pattern, the facts, the actual question, you're going to be able to select it. You see whether you're correct or wrong, and you're going to see, your past attempts. And ideally, we're going to have dashboards, tools, other things that we could build right into this. Now, we're building this on a desktop web browser. I am hoping that we can make it quite responsive so that it fits on your smartphone or your tablet, have different options. But ultimately, what I'm hoping I can do is make this into a progressive web app, which means that I can download the app, go to the website, and save it offline onto my phone. But that's a few steps down the line. We're not going to get there. We're just going to try and build out this application. Now, let me introduce the project a little bit further here. I am taking yet another bar exam. Not fun. And a large chunk of the US bar exam are these multiple choice questions, generally worth about half. And what you have is a set of facts, you have a question, and then there's multiple choice. Now, what's really frustrating is that the NCBE only provides 21 sample questions available in this PDF format. And then when you want to practice more, because most people do at least a couple hundred of these sample test questions to make sure they pass. Some will do thousands of them. The frustrating part is this is such a commercialized product that you go on sites. This is a cheap one actually. 200 questions, you gotta pay $100 for it, American. Um, and then if you want another one, there is, just yet another one that you pay $100 for, and they're quite significant as an expense. And so what I want to do is take these sample questions and maybe go online and find others that I can download, compile them all into my application, and maybe even offer it to other people because these are freely available anyways. So for example, Barbary or Quimby has these practice questions. Now, another frustration is you got to sign up for an account, but this will be in a web form where you can click, which is nice, but everyone's different. You have a bunch of PDFs, you have a bunch of scanned physical documents. Some people publish books, others will give you flashcards. I don't know how this one is provided. Um, but you just have so many different modalities that one day I'm studying off my smartphone, the other day it's a PDF that I printed out, other times it's a book. It just gets very difficult to keep track of. And so my ultimate goal is to run PDFs like this through an AI tool like Gemini Flash. I'm actually thinking of trying Mistral to parse these out. And so I throw this into Mistral and say, hey, can you pull out the question and each of the answers, and also the answer key and potentially an explanation if it is provided. So, long story short, I'm sure if I scrape a bunch of different websites in different ways, I'm going to get to 200, maybe even 500 or 1,000 questions pretty easily and potentially find even more. And that way I can practice consistently on my tablet, just tap, 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 tap. So that is the overall view. And we are going to vibe code our way through it because this is ultimately not all that difficult of a question. And so what I want to show you is what I did first here. I took a pen and paper and actually wrote out a schema just very quickly to figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm realizing that I don't have that anywhere, so I will hold this up for you. Or rather, you know what? I'll show you the sample questions instead. So I have a sample here. The schema is being reworked just a little bit from my original vision, but I'm going to have a giant list of questions. Now, of course, I only have 3 here just to work out the schema. But here you have the question text. It should certainly be longer than this. I give it an ID, and I'll talk about the group afterwards. But I have question text. I have a category because these questions generally cover 1 of 8 of these topics. And so most of the time, I would personally like to practice a mix of all of them because in the real exam, they just show up. You will have 1 criminal procedure question, then a property one, then maybe back to criminal procedure, whatever it may be. So these are completely mixed, but other people want to target what they're weak at. And so what I wanted to do is categorize it so we could filter the questions later. I did want to keep the source, and so you can see this is Barbary, this was NCBE. These are all dummies that were provided by Google Gemini here, so these are not actual questions or actual sources, but regardless, I wanted to keep track of the source. One of the important things is the year, knowing that they're more recent questions are more reflective of a modern exam versus, a 1990s set of questions. Still helpful, but maybe not all that accurate to today. Next, of course, we have the answer, and ideally it comes with an explanation. We have each of the choices that you can make. And finally, we have this user attempts that have different formats. The last bit is the groups. Quite often in these exams, you will have one single longer question or background information, and then a couple of the questions will keep asking about the same fact pattern. And so if I decide to create questions where I mix them up and reorganize them, these groups have to come together, or else I can't have questions like, assume in your last question you answered that the person is guilty. What is the best argument for that? You can't scramble it because you need to ensure that you know what the last question was, some bits and pieces of it. And so that's where the group ID comes in. Okay, so what did I do so far? How did I get here? Well, first of all, I fed this schema written down into Google Gemini, and it created, I workshopped with it, and it created a few sample questions. These are not even legitimate questions, but it fleshed this out, and it also kind of helped me critique and add a few extra fields. Next, what I was really excited to do is I threw this onto Chatbot Arena. So I gave it this schema. I asked it to help me out in creating my dream application. And I ran it a couple different times. Now, 3.5 Sonnet is great, But as we talked about in a previous video, there are all these unreleased models, and I was very excited when I saw Claybrook because it is one of the top models right now, as far as we can tell. It's coming from Google, and so it did it in one shot. Now, admittedly, I made some very minor tweaks to this, but this is basically what Claybrook did after I gave it the schema. And so in reality, it is a perfectly functional version already. You can see I answered a question. I'm going to go next question, and I will say the railroad is liable. I can type some notes. I'm so confused. Submit answer. And then next question and next question, and it's keeping track of the past attempts. Now, another really important thing is that the time spent is quite key because this exam is very, very time limited. So we want to track how long I'm spending on each question as well. Anyways, the few things I want to do is I don't like this loading mechanism. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. These fact patterns are interesting because they show the group, and then if there's no group, you just have the full question. We're going to kind of simplify some of this. I want to tuck this information away, the category and source, ideally not in here. I would like to keep the notes for after I submit the answer so that I can submit the answer, realize I got it wrong, do some research, and put it into notes. Last thing I wanted to do is that I wanted to maybe have a button where I can click and use my finger or my mouse to cross off options, basically an overlay, a canvas overlay, where I can highlight, write notes, and scratch them, whatever. Now, these are very basic questions, but one of the reasons I might want to do this is because at times we have questions where you have a dozen different parties and you want to make sure you keep A and B and C and D characters all separate. So with all that in mind, I have the index page right here. This is what Claybrook put together, 528 characters. This works great. There is no there are no dependencies or anything that's severely troubling. So all of this will work just fine in terms of creating a progressive web app afterwards. But we can do a lot of subtle changes along the way. I'm going to stop talking and start Vibecoding. Okay, so we have went from something like 300-400 lines to just shy of 2,000. So quite a bit of work. I ran into a lot of issues and that dragged up my time, but I was being an idiot. When I was annotating the highlights, I just didn't set the opacity high enough. So I kept thinking it was a solid color and nothing worked to fix it. But what I want to show you is what we have here. Now, first of all, loading JSON data. This is not the ideal mechanism. On one hand, I like that you can load up JSON files so other people can kind of provide their own and potentially use different styles or different exams entirely to load the data. To have it save progress every time manually is kind of dumb. So one of the things I would change is have it automatically save over time. But that will depend a little bit on my creation of many more questions. So I left that alone. The rest of it, while it looks similar, has a lot of little different things. First of all, just like before, you have questions, you have answers, you can submit them. But more importantly, notes can be added before and after the question. The big feature is annotation. So I think it's very helpful to cross off certain options. Annoying. And also to highlight. So this is a short question, but to be able to highlight along the way to say, this is really key. Let's highlight it very heavily. You might use a pen to circle it, whatever. And the fact that this is quite annoying. I'm going to shorten the bar here. But let's say I have this masterpiece. It's useful to be able to toggle and see it, select B, and then go, wait a minute, is it? To keep it persistent. The last thing, and probably the most important, and probably the easiest, is the ability to filter, scramble, and choose different questions. And so in this case, I only want questions I've never answered. I only want evidence questions from NCBE, and I apply the filter, and there's only one question. Of course, that doesn't help, but the idea is if I build a database of 1,000 500 questions, I can do different things. Now, as I'm speaking, it occurs to me that I should do a timer available to the user somewhere on this interface so they could see the total time they've spent and the current time spent on the question. Um, I am not going to go further until I build out this JSON file with at least, 50, 60 questions. But I think there are going to be more filters I should be using. But the big one is I want to create certain quiz conditions. So, for me, I am very much I have 2 minutes to spare. Let's do a question. I have 2 minutes to spare. So I can just do one, two, three, and keep it going. But more normally, I think a lot of folks will want, can you set me up with 100 questions and start the timer for 60 minutes or whatever it may be, and start going at a practice exam kind of condition. I don't normally do that, but the only way to really make this work and test out is it depends on creating a bigger sample JSON file. Now, what is it I'm going to do? It's pretty simple. To build this out, I was planning to find a PDF like this and maybe other sources. I've seen, books and scans. I've seen other PDFs offered by some of the providers, and I was going to run it through Gemini Flash, something pretty light, because they will be able to pull this question out pretty easily and spit it out into this format. And so my prompt would be, here's the current format. Can you add a bunch of questions onto the list for me, or allow me to paste these questions. Here's the PDF. Ta-da, good luck. Now, you've seen this one where there are no explanations, so I will have to be a bit flexible. That none of these are strictly required, but for the most part, I think this will be a simple task um, for Gemini to pull out data, write down what the correct answer is, maybe leave a null or an NA for explanation, and we're good to go. So this is a pretty simple project, but you can see how by building this out and especially allowing others to contribute to this JSON file somehow, I can build out a large database of free questions, make it palatable, give tools that are useful, and finally allow users to use this on their phone so they can annotate on their phone as well. On let's say a tablet, they can have a wider, different interface, but we'll clear and highlight various things and what else. So I'm obviously on desktop as well. I hope that gives you some insight into what kind of power you can do into this. This is not the only hard exam out there. There are many, many quiz applications out there, but you can create something very tailored to your current use with a bunch of AI if you know what you're doing. I think I'm going to keep working on this. It's not quite perfect, but again, it will just depend on how many questions I can pull out into the sample JSON and hopefully crowdsource other people to add questions to it. All right. I'm gonna call it a day. It's a bit longer than I had intended. I had hoped that it would be easier, but my own problem, I was watching videos while doing this, so I didn't notice that this was somewhat transparent, just not transparent enough, and I wasted maybe 20, 30 minutes just going through over and over. Luckily, I don't think that costed me anything, just time. So I hope you found that useful, because I certainly enjoyed building this, and I hope that I'm going to be using this pretty heavily moving forward. Uh, Come back next week and we will work on yet another project. Thanks for watching. Bye.